We've learned how to clean dirty data and how to identify a dirty data. We also did some lab demo where we learned how to clean some samples of dirty data that we have. In this section of the video, we want to learn about Power BI data model. We want to know what the data model is. What kind of model should we have? How do we build the Power BI data model in Power BI? And how do we build the relationships between the different tables that we have in our data model? These are all the things we want to learn in this section. Because of that, we are going to be working with the Global Superstore reports throughout the course of this video now. Let's open that saved report that we have, the report we connected to earlier. Let's open it up. I have my own opened up. We just have different tables here that are doing nothing. And when we come here also, we can see now that we have the data. But what we want to do is we want to go to transform data. We want to open the Power Query, and this is what we have. We want to learn how to create a data model starting from Power Query. But before that, let's do some theory. The Power BI data model is a collection of tables with relationships which enable business users to easily understand and explore their data. Basically, as an analyst, sometimes when you work or in the organization or you have a project you want to work on, the data that will be supplied or that you may have may be a big giant table. But what the data model is, building a collection of tables with relationships. It means you want to organize that big giant table that we have into several collection of tables and build relationships between them. The question is, why is it important to have a good data model? It is important because it helps us to improve understanding of the data. Maybe this is the most important reason. It increases performance of report and usage metrics when you have a good data model. Oftentimes, when you have designed a report, you've sent it to the users may not like it. The usage metric may be poor. One common reason from my experience is because of performance issues. When the users click on some sliders, they get their results late. Because of that, users don't use that particular report well. With a good data model, your report response during interactions is going to be fast. The performance will improve, and it will subsequently also improve the user metric of your report and dashboard. It also improves the resilience to change. When you have a good data model, you can easily update one or several tables when you have new data. What are the examples of the data modeling type? What are the types that we have? We have the flat or the normalized table. In that flat table, it is just one very big giant table. This is what we don't want to use. Like I said, this is what we don't want to have. Then we have the star schema. The star schema is what we should have. Then I'm going to show us what the snowflake is when we are doing some lab and demo. This is an example of a denormalized table. It is a big giant table. When you are doing data modeling, what you are actually doing is you are doing data normalization. What data normalization is that you are organizing the tables and columns in a relational database to reduce redundancy and preserve data integrity. In short, when you have a denormalized table like this, you want to organize the tables into several groups. For example, this is a sales table, and we have information about the customers. We have information about the countries, about the market, geography, and things like that. You want to take all these several groups into several tables and create a relationship between your main table that changes every day and the ones that do not change. The star schema normalization is basically organizing tables into fact and dimension tables. What is a fact table? A fact table stores an accumulation of rows that represent observations or events that record a specific business activity, which means if I have a retail business, I sell things, the observations that I have every day is the sales information that happens. A customer comes, buys a particular product, some unit of that product. Those are the information I need, which is the order ID or the sales ID, Then maybe the customer ID, the amount of sales that was done, how many quantity of that product was sold. That is the fact table. It is events that are stored. Events that are stored in a sales fact table could be sales orders and the other lines. Fact tables contains numerous rows. As time passes, fact table rows accumulate. That is the fact table. But this is not enough for us for analytical purpose. We usually need a dimension table. A dimension table allows you to filter. It allows you to explain whatever you have in your fact table. For example, I may want to explain my sales data in terms of dates. How many sales? What is my revenue for a particular month, for a particular year, for a particular week, for a particular day? Then it means I need a date dimension table, or we call it the calendar table. Then I may also want to explain my data in terms of product categories. Do we have a particular product selling more than others? Then I need a product dimension table. Okay, maybe I also have several branches of my retail business. Because of that, I even have some branches in different countries. Because of that, I want to analyze the sales based on the different countries my business is operating. I may also want to analyze my sales based on a particular employee, the managers, the customers. Maybe I want to know the most valuable customer I have, or maybe I want to know the customers that are always coming to my store, the repeating customers. These are all things I can use to explain my fact table, and we call them the dimension table. Each dimension must have a unique column. That unique column is what you are going to connect to your fact table and create a relationship. If you are coming from relational database like SQLs, we call it primary key and foreign key. That is what we usually call it. But in this case, we just say dimension table, it must have a unique key. That unique key is what you use to build relationship. This is just a diagrammatic example. We have our fact table in the middle and it connects to the dimension. It connects to the dimension. The dimension is the one side. It's always unique. You have unique information there. Then the fact, you can have the many information there, which means, for example, if I have a customer dimension table like I have here, I have a particular customer name. It is going to be unique, or a particular customer ID is going to be unique, just one of it. But in my orders, in this F orders table, what I may have there may be several rows of that customer coming to my business to make a purchase. That is just an of what we are trying to say. We want to take our table from a big flat table and divide it into several tables, where you are going to have a table which is called dimension table, DI, for customer, another dimension for calendar, that I can explain my data here. The facts table based on month, the month, year, quarter, the week of the year, and so on and so forth. This is the star schema design. And we also want to know what are the differences again. The differences again is, for dimension table is store business entities, those things you use to filter and explain your data. The fact table does what? It stores events and observations. The dimension table also includes a key column for filtering and grouping. Meanwhile, the fact table includes dimension key and numeric measure. Numeric measure like sales, discounts, profit, number of units sold. Those are the kind of things you find in your fact table. So, what are the steps? What steps do we follow? Import data. We already know how to do that in Power BI. Then we have clean and transform the data. We know how to do that. The next step is to normalize the tables for star schema data modeling. The process of normalization can also be called transformation, because it means you are changing the shape. You are changing the number of columns, for example, of the table. It can also be a transformation step. This you usually want to do inside Power Query. Once you are done with that, you load the data, and then you create relationships between the fact table and the several dimension tables that you may have. How do you build the dimension and the fact tables in your Power BI? Let's do that now. Usually, when I teach this for the first time, what I tell people to do is, you can write on the whiteboard, you can write on some paper, that you have on your desk. You can also use Excel. I'm just going to use Excel to do that now and show us where we watch what I'm doing. But I also encourage you, wherever you are watching this from, to also be part of the process so that we learn how to do that. Okay, good. The first step is to identify all report fields. When we look at our data, the global superstore data, we can see now that these are our report fields. Let me just deactivate the column profile. These are our report fields. I identify all of them and I put them in a particular column. This is it. Let us move to the second step. The second step is to categorize the fields into reporting lines or values. I'm going to come here and I'm going to say that, okay, which one is a reporting line, which one is a value? Basically, values are numeric columns. We can just check again. We can check in Excel. This is it. We can see now that we only have few numeric columns, which is the quantity column, the discount column, the profit column, and the shipping cost column. All other columns are reporting lines. They are reporting lines. All other columns are reporting lines. Those are only our values. We are just going to come here and let us call these values. And what I'm going to do is to just copy this and call these reporting lines. Good. Then we can just copy and paste this here. That's step 2. Let us go back again. What is step 3? Find and group reporting lines. What does this mean? It means we should group our reporting lines. We should find and group reporting lines. We want to have several groups for the reporting lines. So what we do in this step is that we are going to say that, okay, for each reporting lines, we are going to say, is there any relationship between one reporting line and the other? If there is a relationship between them, we are going to call it they are going to belong to the same group. For example, row ID, it is just on its own. It doesn't have any relationship between row ID and state. If I have a particular row ID, it doesn't give me information about the markets. The row ID is something that can change. It may not even be useful for us. We can call it D1. That's group 1. Then the other ID is D2. Because the other ID the row ID does not tell you what the other ID is. These are completely independent of each other. Then we have D3, order date. Then D4 for ship date. And the ship date does not tell us the ship mode. What I'm trying to say is, on a particular date that we are shipping a product, we could use several ship modes. Then we have what we call customer ID. That is also going to belong to another group. But the customer ID can tell me, because a customer name, we only have a unique ID. Then it can belong to the same group. Then what is segment? Let us check what segment is. This is segment. Segment now is actually telling us that we've segmented our customers into several categories, several groups. So it means if I know a particular customer name, I can say that, okay, this particular customer belongs to a particular segment. What I'm going to do is to categorize it together into the same group. Then I have city. My customer can make a purchase of that in one city and make it in another city. The customer name does not tell me the city where this purchase has been made. So I can call it D7. And this state is also going to relate with city, and this is going to be D7 also, the postal code D7. Market, let us check what market is. Market is this. This looks like country or some geographic group. Then we can call it D7 also. Region, D7. Then product ID, D8. Category, D8. Product name, D8. Then sales, these are not going to be categorized. Then the other priority. This other priority, maybe it relates to the other ID. Maybe it could relate to the other ID. We can argue it. I'm just going to call it D2. Let's go to the next step. Let's check the next step. The next step is identify dimension key. What is dimension key? This is the field with the lowest granularity in each group. That is the dimension key. What I'm going to look is, for each group, we can see D1 alone exists on its own, which means that it is going to be the dimension key because it is the only one in the group. But for each group now, let's say D8, we are going to look at it. Which one has the lowest granularity? The lowest granularity is the one that opens the door to others. It tells you information about all others. If I know a product ID I can know the category of that product. I can know the subcategory of the product. I can know the product name. That is what it means. But if I know a category, it doesn't give me information about product ID. It could be anything. You understand? For example, for geography now, the lowest granularity is going to be, it could be postal code, it could be city. It could be postal code, it could be city. Then you need to check your data. For example, when we check our data and see what we have, postal code, let us check postal code. We can see now that when we check the column distribution, we can see now that the count is 1000 but empty 804 for the top 1000 rows. A lot of information is not known about the postal code. In that case, we cannot use postal code as our dimension key. We need to have all information about it. I'm just going to make city the dimension key here. Let's do that. This guy is going to be DK. Then other dates, we can leave that. Ship date, customer ID is going to be dimension key. Then the dimension key in this is going to be the one with the lowest granularity. Then it's going to be DK. We have that. Then the next step is to do what? Is to identify the fact file fields. The fact file fields, what are they going to be? These are fields that are combination of dimension key and the reporting lines. Combination of dimension key and reporting lines, which means that anything that is a dimension key is going to belong to fact. We are going to call this fact, and this is going to be fact, fact, fact. Then anything that is a value is also fact. That is our fact file field. Then we create the dimension files. The dimension files are going to be what? We already know them. Everything in a particular group is going to be a dimension table on its own. What does that mean? It means that D1 is a dimension. That's one dimension. D2 is another dimension table. D3 is another dimension table. D6 is going to be in a single table. This is what I'm saying. We are going to have a table now. We can, let's start from the end, for example. And we say D8, for example, D8 table, and everything that is D8 is going to be this. Control C, that is one table. Then we want to create another table, another dimension table. Everything that is D7, which is city, state, country, postal code, market, and region, is going to be D7. Then everything D6 is going to be customer ID. These are the fields that are going to be in different tables. Then D5, ship mode. D5, ship mode. We are going to just copy it. It is the only one in the group. We are going to add more details later. Then D4, the only one in the group. We leave that. Date, I'm going to explain more about that later. Then D3, we leave that. That is date. I will explain more about it later. Then D2 is going to be other ID and other priority. Then D1, row ID. It doesn't look informative. There is nothing we want to describe. Remember, our dimension are those things we use to filter or we use to explain our data. Really, this doesn't have any value for us in a way. So we don't create a dimension for it. We have D8, these dimension tables, dimension fields. We can give it a more descriptive name. For example, we can call this dimension. Then we call D7. Then we call D7 dimension geography. Then this guy, we call it we call it dimension customer. Ship mode, we leave it as it is. Then we call this dimension order, or we call it priority. Diff, we call it ship mode. Good. We've created the tables for our dimensions now. Now we need to create tables for our facts. Our facts is a combination of what? Combination of dimension keys and values. Anything that we have facts here is going to be in our facts table. Now we have the fields of our fact table. In our data modeling, we are going to be creating relationship between products and facts. Now we have product ID here. We also have product ID. We create a relationship. Geography. We have city here. We also have city here. We create a relationship. Ship mode. Ship mode. Let us check. It seems there's a mistake somewhere. Ship mode is over here. Where is ship mode? Ship mode has to be a dimension key because it is the only one that we have. So it's going to be facts also. We need to add ship mode here. Good. Good. Now we have it. We create relationship between ship mode and facts also. We create relationship between dimension, priority, and facts. So that is what we do. We already know our fields. Remember, we always need to explain our data with respect to dates. Because we are talking about dates, now we always need what we call the calendar table. The calendar table, we call it dimension calendar, or we call it the date table. So what does it contain? It contains all dates within the year that you want to use to analyze your data. It contains information about dates, it contains about week, then month, year. You can use in the calendar. We also have what we call month, year. These are things you may want to analyze your data with. In fact, some calendar tables are going to have weather, holiday. Maybe you want to analyze, you want to see, do we have more sales on days with holidays or days without holiday? You want to analyze your sales. Is it a date with holidays? This is what we put in calendar. We can stop here. We know what we want now. We want the fact table that contains these tables, these fields, the dimension for calendar that contains these fields, for products that contains these fields, for geography that contains these fields, customer with these fields, ship mode with these fields, and order priority with these fields. That is what we have now. Again, I want you to understand the many side of this data is going to be the fact. Then the one side of it is going to be the products, which means that you are only going to be having unique items in your dimensions, but you can have observations. A particular product can sell several times, and you are going to have it in your facts. Let's get to the lab or the demo and start working. What I want us to do is, let us open the global superstore reports that we have or that we've saved earlier, and let us come to transform data, which opens the Power Query interface for us. Okay, everything looks good. Okay, let's just make a refresh. It seems there is an error somewhere. Now that we have our Power Query opened, we have our orders table. Let's start with orders that we have here. You can just duplicate this particular table because it is from this orders table you want to create your facts and dimension. We want to just duplicate it several times. Okay, now let's start from this and create our facts table. To create our facts table, we already know we need some columns in the facts table. We are just going to come to choose column here, and we come to choose column, and we are going to check and uncheck these ones we need. Let me just uncheck all first. What do I need in my facts table? I need my row ID, order date, ship mode, customer ID. I need my product ID. I need my city. Usually we should have used postal code instead of city, but we do not have all information about postal code. We use city instead. Then I need my sales, quantity, discount, profit, shipping cost, and I do not need other priorities. Okay, let's check again. Everything, does it look good? It looks good. Once I do that, it basically does a step of removing the columns. Again, you have to look at it very well. Do you really need your row ID for any analysis? Do you need it to create any relationship? No. Because of that, I'm going to remove the column. Now we have those things we need in our facts table. If I want to rename this table, I can come over here or do it from here. So let me just right click and do rename. And I'm going to call it F to show that it is a facts file and call it orders. Good. Now let's come here. We want to choose column and let's check again. We want to create products table. So these are the fields that I need in my products. I'm going to come here again, choose column. We could have done something like this. Hold down the control key and you just select. And after doing that, you right click, remove other columns. That is another method of doing that instead of doing choose column. Good. After you've done that, because it is a dimension file, it is a dimension table, you need to right click and do remove duplicates because we do not need duplicates in our dimension table. You are going to remove duplicates on the dimension key, based on the dimension key. Now we are good. We are going to rename it and call it dimension products. Good. Then I'm going to come to the next. We've done this. We want to come to customer now. Then choose column, uncheck all, and check everything that remains that concerns customer. Then you do what? You remove duplicates. Then you rename. Then we do the next one, which is geography. Choose column and check everything that relates to geography. City, state, country, postal code, market, region. After doing that, we do what? Remove duplicate based on the dimension key. Then you rename. Then we come to this. We've done this. We want to do shift mode and priority. We come to this. We only need shift mode. Choose column. And where is shift mode? This is shift mode. Then we remove duplicates and we call it dimension shift mode. Then we have priority, right? Then we can duplicate this. And I think this is a good time to tell us the difference between duplicate and reference. When you duplicate, you basically duplicate the table and you can apply all the steps. But if I have applied some step here, if I use reference, for example, let me try and use reference. And I call this guy priority. So it references this table, which means if I make any change to what we have in this particular order table, the first one, it is going to have an effect on what you have in priority. But let's assume I remove row ID. If I come to priority now, you are going to see now that it's going to update it and change it. You won't have row ID in your priority table. But if you check the columns that we duplicated, it's not going to have that effect. It's not going to have that effect. They are going to be independent columns. But if you use reference, they are not going to be independent. They are going to depend on each other. The priority is going to depend on the others that have been referenced. In this case, it doesn't really change anything if we use reference in this particular case, but you want to be careful when you use it and when you do not use it. I uncheck all and I'm going to have other priority and I'm going to remove duplicates. In the actual sense, let's go back to what we have here. Maybe we have other ID here, but let's look at it. Do I need to put other ID here? Because let's assume I include other ID. Choose column again. I include other ID. The other ID, remember, they are unique. If you remove duplicates, you are not going to have the same thing. I think for this particular scenario now, it may not be good to use other ID. More also, I'm not going to be filtering based on other ID. In that case, I'm going to remove this column for other ID and I'm going to remove duplicates based on this. This is what I'm going to have. In some cases, some people are going to create what we call other priority ID. An ID for the other priority. And that other priority ID is now going to be inside my facts. They're also going to do the same thing for shift mode ID. But in this case, it doesn't really change anything and we can leave it like that and create relationship based on shift mode and based on other priority. Now we've created some of the tables we need. It only remains the calendar table, which I'm going to be showing us in the next module, in the next video, how to create the calendar table. In this case, this particular orders table, the first one, we do not need to load it. We can just do uncheck enable load. Continue. Now I have my people returns. This first two, we've not talked about it. I have my fact table, the dimension tables. Let's come to this returns table. This returns table is basically another fact table. If you look at it, it's another fact table because it is something that can happen every day. It is an observation that is being recorded. It's another fact table. In this particular data, we have two fact tables. So what I'm going to do is you can see the first column, the first row, you promote that first row so that everything looks good and we leave it as it is. Then we come to people. What is people? Let us first promote the headers to clean and transform the data. People looks like a column that explains what people is. These are like managers for each of the region. For each of the regions, these are the managers. In this case, it is also a dimension. But the question is the person and region. These are the only two columns that we have in our people table. Which means if I use it to create a relationship with fact, we won't have any column here that I'm going to use to create a relationship with it. But I can connect my people to geography. We have two things we can do. We can leave it as it is and create a relationship between people and what? And geography. The moment you create relationship between one dimension and another dimension, in that case, we are going to say that we have a snowflake schema. If I don't want to have that kind of schema, what do I need to do? I need to merge people, this column, this table with what? With geography. I'm just going to come to geography and I'm going to come to transform, and we want to merge two tables together. Under home, we have merge query. I'm just going to click on that and I'm going to come over here. We have the people's table and we create relationship between region. We want to join based on region and we do a left outer join. We can see now that not all columns are matched. We need to check why not all columns are matched. We need to check that. But let's create the relationship first. And we expand this, uncheck this. We do not need region. Okay, let's leave this for now. Now, we can see now that for all cases where we have EMEA region, we have null. The question is it that we do not have EMEA region in people? Let us check. We can see it is AMEA. According to our golden rules of cleaning dirty data, remember, we have to check for inconsistency, for typos. In this case, we can basically rename AMEA as what? EMEA, because we do not have any region AMEA in geography tables. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to do replace values, and I'm going to say that anywhere that you have AMEA, let us do EMEA. I've corrected this. Let me go back to my merge table. Now we can see now that for all places with EMEA, we can see now that there is a successful merge. I'm going to go back to my merge query again, click on this GS icon, and after doing that, what do I need to do? I just want to check. Is it merging correctly now? We can see now all rows have been merged correctly. Good. So I'm going to come to expanded table again, click on the gearbox. I do not need this region. I'm going to uncheck it. Good, everything looks good now. After doing this, what we just need to do is this people's table, we do not need it because we already have the information from it in our geography table. I can do what again? Uncheck enable load. Good. Then everything looks good now. I'm going to close and do what? And apply. And it's going to load this data into Power BI. We can see that is happening now. The next step for us is to create relationships. Once we have done with creating our relationship, we are going to see why it is important to create relationship. Then we are going to go and complete our dimension table. We need a calendar table to work with.